ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to QuantumCast'24, the podcast where we explore the fascinating world of science, technology, and everything in between. I am Chanul, and today we have a very truly inspiring guest joining us. This individual is someone who has made his mark in the academic world, ranking 6th in the island in the A-level biology stream in 2023. Please welcome Master Mohamed Shaafee, an extraordinary student who's here to share his journey, study techniques, and insights into his success. So, Shaafee Aya, how's your day been so far?
It's been a great day, thank you, Chanul. It's an honor to be here.
Alright, that's very nice to hear. It's really great to have you here, Shaafee Aya. And I'm sure our listeners are really eager to hear how you've reached such a remarkable milestone. We'll start off with our first segment for the day, your journey to success. So, Shaafee Aya, let's start from the beginning. What got you interested in biology as a subject, and when did you realize that it was something that you wanted to pursue to such a high extent?
I was always interested in science from a very young age because I used to read a lot. So even before we actually started studying science as a subject, which was in grade 6, I used to read encyclopedias and such and watch documentaries and such. But we do get introduced to science as a subject in grade 6. And I like the subject, all three aspects of it, that is biology, physics and chemistry. But it went one step further in grade 7 in 2016 when I got to participate in the Junior National Science Olympiad, and that we had to study things beyond our syllabus, and that opened my eyes into a lot of things, and that my interest. And a lot of that interest has also been because of the great teachers we've had in school. To mention two, my grade 8 and 9 science teacher, Sanjeeva sir, and my grade 10 and 11 science teacher, Utpala miss. Both of them taught us a lot. They taught us beyond what was just there in our textbooks, and that was what interested me the most. If I have to mention particularly, Utpala miss actually told me to read our biology reference book, our A-level biology reference book, which was Campbell. So I started reading Campbell Biology in grade 10 itself, and I also got hold of the A-level resource book. So I was quite aware of the things beyond the syllabus at that level itself. So that was a lot of it was interesting. So that was how my interest in biology started. If you're talking about streams and why I chose it, well, my father is an engineer and my mother's a doctor, so there really is only two options for us. So, and amidst those two, I chose biology, the biological science stream, because I thought that at that point, I thought that it was harder and more interesting, and then probably thought that I would want to pursue a career as a doctor. So that was how it started.
Alright, that's very interesting to hear. And it's really interesting how you yourself had a lot of self-motivation starting from grade 7 itself. I never really thought of myself even as going so far into studies, but
that was the circumstances were such. It was because I had to go to the Science Olympiad that I knew that there were so many things, and that there was such a thing, and I got introduced. It was the exposure, I would say. That exposure comes partly because we are in such a great school. Being a royalist, we get a lot of exposure. That exposure played a pivotal role in shaping me so far, I would say.
That is very nice to hear, and it truly is a really proud thing to say that you're a royalist. It truly makes sense that you got that much exposure. But regardless of that aspect, now that we have a brief idea about why you want to pursue biology as a subject and as a stream, let's talk about how you as an individual, like understanding how biology is a challenging subject for some students, and I'm pretty sure
it was a challenging subject for me as well.
Obviously, biology being such a hard subject to chase, what were some of the biggest obstacles that you had to face during your lifetime as a student when you were pursuing biology?
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning. We all know that in 2020 we were hit with the most unexpected crisis, the COVID pandemic. So I would say that when I was studying, grade 10 was probably my best year so far. I was in very good momentum, and as soon as COVID came, I can precisely remember even, it was in the March, it was the second week of March 2020, I think. I was studying for our term test, which was scheduled to be held, I think, in the end of March. And when I heard that there was a lockdown and there was not going to be any exams, I think my momentum dropped there. And it took a very, very, very long time to regain that momentum. And I don't think I did regain it exactly as I wanted to. By the time I regained it, it was quite too late. So because of COVID, and we know a lot of us had fatigue during COVID. And because of that, and because of the lockdown, and because of quarantine and all, I lost a lot of motivation to study. So I was distracted in various ways, and I did not work to the level that which I could have worked. And that happened during O-levels, and then afterwards in A-levels also that happened. I think because during our first year, most of our classes in A-levels first year, that I think was in 2021, most of our classes were online. And I didn't think I gave my fullest attention, my fullest focus to it. So I didn't make use of that first year as much as I could have. So especially when it comes to physics was fine, I suppose. Physics, out of the three subjects, my favorite was physics. So it was all right. But the biggest issue for me was biology. Because of certain aspects that I didn't study. We know that in our Sri Lankan A-level biology, what we are meant to do is we have a resource book. We are meant to memorize it word by word as if it were the Bible. So that in itself was challenging for me, because I was used to know, though we studied subjects like history, first language and so forth, science and all in O-levels, though we had textbooks in our school, teachers didn't really emphasize us to write it word to word. So I would tend to, even definitions and such, I would tend to write them in my words, and teachers used to encourage them if they were correct, if they were meaningful. But in biology, that is not the case, because even if we write the right thing, if we do not use the precise words given in the resource books, it is considered incorrect. And because I had because I was used to reading reference books, a lot of reference books for biology like Campbell and also Ross and Wilson and such, I didn't really understand that we had to straitjacket ourselves and memorize the resource book word to word. So, and I didn't want to. Even when I got to know, I was so disappointed of it, and I was very discouraged. And that added to all this COVID, the online classes and all, meant that I didn't study biology at all for the entire first year. And our schools also, I can remember, started quite late. It started in 2022. And nowadays it's not like that, and that's good, because 26 and all, even before the O-level results came, they've started. But we started quite late in 2022, January or something. And then our first term test, we didn't have a first term test. Our second term test happened somewhere in August or September. So up to that point, I had not studied biology properly. I had not memorized it as I should have. So that set me back by a long time. And then I did study for the term test, and I got good marks. But nevertheless, that set back. And we know that our term tests were held. The subsequent term test came closer and closer. And then all of that biology accumulated and accumulated, and it accumulated until the very end. You wouldn't believe me if I say that I finished the syllabus quite late. In fact, the 10th unit of biology I studied just the week before our final exam. So that setback because of biology was my biggest trouble, and that was my biggest obstacle. And I wouldn't say I had been completely successful in overcoming it, but I managed somehow.
Welcome to NCHS.
Studying has never felt this good.
It's not just studying.
This is what a lab should be. Whatever I want, whenever I need.
I don't miss a single class of it.
I'm flying to Australia next week.
Commence degree pathways at NCHS and continue in Australia, Malaysia or USA. Unlock your future.
Truly is very inspiring to think about how you as an individual managed to overcome such stagnant, hard sometimes, and it's very inspiring to all of our viewers and me as well, because COVID has still made us very stagnant. I don't think I've am studying as hard as I did before COVID, even right now. But it's very inspiring to see how you as an individual managed to overcome all of those. And even if it meant covering an entire syllabus before a week of the exam, that's still a huge milestone. So really, congratulations to you a lot. And now, Shaafee, I want to talk about a very crucial topic towards everyone that's listening as a whole as well. So when you were a student and just before your A-level examinations, how did you find yourself managing your time? Because managing time isn't a very easy topic to cover. How did you manage your hours?
That's personally the biggest issue for me as well, because I used to spend a lot of time sometimes doing nothing. I get distracted very easily. So I wouldn't say that I managed time all that well in the beginning, but towards the end, I think I was able to do somewhat better. So what I used to do, and I think I have to thank my parents a lot for that, especially my mother. When it comes to I did not have a routine as such, I did not have a schedule on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. Even towards the end, I did not study to a fixed schedule. But I always used to plan my activities towards the nearest necessity, shall we say. That is, if I had, this was how it was in classes, if we had exams, and we used to have weekly exams, particularly for physics. So I used to study physics and chemistry on a weekly basis. I wouldn't really study biology on a daily basis or weekly basis. But when our term test comes, so when our school term test comes, for the last 2 weeks, I would be studying only biology. So that was what happened towards the end also. Because I was quite thorough with physics and chemistry and I had that practice, I probably dedicated the entire last month to studying biology. So I did not have a strong schedule, but I think that in terms of managing time, I tried to, because I did questions, and I did it with questions, as in I did questions on a daily basis, past papers for physics. We did it in classes as well, for physics and chemistry and such. And because I could, my daily goal would be to complete certain number of MCQs, a certain number of essays, to study certain sections. So I went with that. I did not have a rigid schedule as such. But then what works for everyone what works for someone does not work for someone else. So it depends on the person as well. So my routine was very flexible, but I wouldn't suggest that everyone has to follow that. There are people who have succeeded by having very strict timetable, and perhaps that works better.
That is very interesting to hear. And so, with further advice on how time management works for an individual who's placed the top 6th within the biology stream, that is very interesting and very intriguing to hear about how you manage your time. And with that, we'll be moving on to the second segment within your techniques for academic success. So, Shaafee, stress has been a very intimidating factor for multiple students, I'd say, especially when they're chasing after very hard subjects to master overall. So, what were your strategies in overcoming stress, and what were the main support structures you tended to in terms of overcoming this sort of student stress that you go through?
I think what is essential is the awareness that stress is not going to get anyone anywhere. Getting stressed now, as I told you, I hadn't completed the syllabus, and that the exams, before postponement, it was going to be in November, I think. It was going to be November like it is for the 24 batch. So because of that sort of, there was pressure indeed, and I did feel stressed, but I didn't think that, stress is fine. There is good stress. That is, if you use that stress fruitfully and effectively, then it's good actually. It's quite productive. So the first thing is the awareness. I was stressed, but I never let it stop me at that point. So because I see some people, they get demotivated. They work hard from the very beginning and they get demotivated towards the end because of that exam stress. Very clever people, in fact. So I did not. I know people from our school, even friends who have done that and who have gotten demotivated. And in my case, what I knew that there's nothing to be done thinking or fretting over the past. What I could do at that moment is to do the maximum that I could do. And that awareness comes first, and then there was a lot of support from my family, from my parents, from my sister, from my friends, and also from our teachers and our school, I always used to think about that. Because my teachers had a lot of expectation, our school had a lot of expectation in me, and I always thought about how I should not disappoint anyone, and that kept constantly ringing in my mind. And I think that's why I never let anything put me back that crucial moments during those moments.
Thank you for that very fruitful advice. I never thought that using stress as a way of motivating yourself would, like, as a whole, be productive towards anyone. Thank you so much for sharing that advice. It really helps me and everyone that's listening, I really hope. And with that, I have a very important question to ask from you as well. In terms of studying, have there ever been moments where you felt like giving up and like putting your past behind and stopping what you're doing?
Quite a lot, actually. So as I told you, I found biology very challenging. I think I have a good memory, but I found the whole concept of memorizing that resource book word by word not very productive and not very scientific. And I think that our resource book, I had problems with that. You know that the resource book was introduced after 2019 in the new syllabus. And I thought that when we had good reference books, the resource book did not do much help for me, especially as an English medium student, because I could refer reference books. So, and some of it was, I feel, inconsistently written. So there were many times when I felt that I wanted to change streams. Actually, I constantly thought about changing streams, changing to maths, because I fell in love with maths also in A-levels, because I studied a little bit of maths by myself, A-level maths. So when there were a lot of times when I wanted to give up studying biology, and I didn't want to study biology at all. But then what I thought about was, due to various reasons, because I did quite well in our school term tests, that changing streams didn't happen. And when the pressure started adding up, I think it was, especially the first year was fine. The second year, I mean, as in the fourth term test and fifth term test and so forth, biology became a big burden. So I did think about stopping, but I never stopped, again because of that courage and support and I got from my parents and teachers. So I am a little, let's say, personally not a very obedient or disciplined child, but quite stubborn actually. So forth, from grade 1 to this moment, it was my mother who has always pushed me. She has driven me so forth, and also all our teachers. If we talk about Ushani, Miss used to send me question papers, our school papers from other schools, and always used to motivate me to do them. And then all my school teachers, class teachers, and all that faith and all that trust they had, I didn't want to break that. I didn't want to, whenever I felt low, I felt alright in failing my expectations, but I felt I couldn't fail their expectations. So those that trust and faith that they had in me helped me during those times when I did feel demotivated.
That's very nice to hear, that you want to see other people happy in your success. And now, Shaafee, I want to ask you a question that involves your very personal opinion. So in your opinion, right, what do you feel is the role of self-motivation and the motivation that you give to yourself? And for the people who are low on self-motivation, how do you think you can boost those sorts of scenarios?
Like I already said, people would have come to this stream thinking of something, having a personal goal. So for most students who do biology, they would want to become a doctor. Most people who do maths, they would want to be an engineer. They will have those self-expectations and they will have those self-goals. So thinking back to that and thinking about what they have should motivate them, because they would have come with that initial motivation. They should always go back to that, re-experience that and recall that. So doing that, I believe, would motivate them. And then when it comes to stress, I also want to tell you that when it's fine now, towards the end we will be studying for a lot of time. So it is, if you want a bit of a break, that's fine in getting. Now, for instance, if you're studying for hours, spending a few minutes reading or watching something or listening to music is not going to harm anyone, or even just taking a walk or talking to someone. So those sort of breaks also help us relieve stress. And as far as motivation is concerned, I think above all that motivation is extremely internal. So thinking back to your goals helps motivate you at the end.
Alright, thank you for that very insightful knowledge, Shaafee Iyer. So now that we have an idea about how you managed to overcome your challenges, how you managed to pass your exam with such great flying colors, let's talk a bit about how you succeeded beyond the numbers after we are done with a very short ad break. So with that, we'll be moving on to a very short commercial break, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Welcome to NCHS.
Studying has never felt this good.
It's not just studying.
This is what a lab should be. Whatever I want, whenever I need.
I don't miss a single class of it.
I'm flying to Australia next week.
Commence degree pathways at NCHS and continue in Australia, Malaysia or USA. Unlock your future.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to QuantumCast'24. We are here with Shaafee Iyer, the island's 6th ranker in A-level biology for 2023. So, Shaafee Iyer, preparing for A-levels is very intense, obviously. So, in your opinion, what role did past papers and time management as well play during the exam, during the last few months especially, and how did you take an approach towards those segments?
In my opinion, past papers is everything, because we know that A-levels is a standardized exams. They follow a particular model and nothing can make us get acquainted with that model as past papers. So I'll talk about how past papers are important for each of the 3 subjects. Let me start with physics, my favorite. So in physics, I did past papers from 1975. MCQs from 1975, structures and essays also as much as I could from 1975. So we see, to just give an example, in our paper, in our 2023 paper itself, literally 30 plus questions are either the same as past papers, the same concept, so just some of the concepts modified, tweaked up a bit. So some questions are precisely and exactly the same as previous papers. For instance, the 42nd question of the 2023 paper is the same as the 40th question of the 1991 special paper. So past papers, they repeat the questions again and again. So what we must do is we must do the past papers not once, not twice, but as many times as possible. So what I used to do is, when I do questions, we did questions in classes from 1975. And also I did it by myself as well a number of times. So what I used to do is, I used to circle those questions which I would get wrong in the first try. Sometimes I used to also those questions which would have taken me a bit more time, or questions I would have found slightly difficult. So I would revisit that question again. And then it should have become easier by then when I'm revisiting it again, slightly. And then I would revisit it again. And likewise, I would have revisited a number of times until those questions become so easy that I can do them. And sometimes I even remember some of those questions, the values and even the answers. So familiarizing yourself with past papers to that extent is of great and paramount importance. And when we are talking about time management, I'll talk about that here as well. As most people say, most people run out of time for the physics MCQs, they say. That is because they haven't practiced the past papers. I think Rosa sir would have also mentioned about this. So when we talk about MCQs, we know there's a difference between MCQs and part 2. If you try to do MCQs the way you do part 2 questions, you're never going to make it. So in an MCQ, we are not expected to get the answer. We are expected to choose the answer. So elimination techniques, all sorts of shortcuts can be used. They are perfectly legitimate. I know some people discourage shortcuts and all, but if Professor Rosa sir says so, then who are we to argue? And his reviews are also of great help. There are reviews, his reviews, I think MCQ reviews are there from 1994, and structure and essay reviews are there from 2000 onwards. So when I do those questions, especially for the tough questions, I always used to read his reviews. And there's a lot of methods that he would have mentioned, short methods he would have mentioned. You yourself, when a person does them, you yourself can be creative and imaginative and come up with short methods yourself. So, and when you do these things, when you do physics, if you do it in a long method with a rough paper, then it'll be, I don't think it'll be as pleasant an experience. But when you do it easily and calmly and, doing it using short methods and imaginatively, then doing MCQs becomes such a beautiful experience. And because I could do it shortly, I think in my the final physics MCQ, I could do the MCQ paper within 40 minutes, less than 40 minutes. So I had a lot of time left. So time management and past papers, you have put those two together, and they are together. Doing past papers is the time management, because in the exams also, that's what happens. When it comes to structure and essay also, when you time it at home and do it. When you do it at home, you shouldn't time it exactly to the time that is given in the papers. For instance, if you're going to do a 2-hour paper, the 2-hour MCQ, when you're timing it and doing it at home, don't time it for 2 hours. Time it for 1.5 hours, because you know that in the exam hall you will have additional stress. There'll be all sort of distractions and all. Doing it at home is not the same. So you have to time it for lesser time and try to complete it as fast as you can. And talking about the exam experience also, that's why term tests are important. That's why we should come to school and do the term tests, because doing things at home will not give the same experience. That exam hall experience, since we're going to do the final exams also at school, coming to school and doing those term tests under supervision, that is of a great help and of a great replication of the exam hall experience. And when we talk about royal papers, they are more difficult than the past papers. So doing that, becoming used to our royal papers, which are probably the toughest papers of any of the school papers, doing past papers is very easy. That's why if we can do a royal paper, the essays, if you have seen, you will see, royalists would know obviously, the size of the essays are sometimes beyond 2 pages. So when we are able to do such essays in 30 minutes, obviously we'll be able to do the past paper essays in 15 to 20 minutes. So that's also a big help, and that's what it is for physics. Likewise for chemistry and biology also, I used to do the past papers. For chemistry, I did the MCQs from 1980s onwards, structures and essays from 2000s. For biology, because of the syllabus changes, I did from 2019 completely, but I also did questions from the 2000s, structures and essays. In certain cases, the answers would have changed, terminology would have changed, but the questions remain the same. So you can do those past papers, but you can't follow those schemes. You have to find the answers using the resource book. You can get the help of a teacher, but certain questions are same. For instance, if we take environmental biology or microbiology, the same questions, the past paper questions, even the old syllabus questions, are the same as the new syllabus questions. And essays also, there are many essays. For instance, in our 2019 paper, our 2023 paper, one of the essays, the consequences of blockage of coronary arteries, is the same question that came in 2019 old syllabus. So old syllabus questions also can be repeated. And likewise in 22, the urine formation and secondary growth question were also taken from the 2019 or 20 old syllabus papers. So doing past papers is the major way to get yourself acquainted with the exams, to practice yourself for the exams, and to manage time as well. So doing past papers is the most important thing, I would say. No matter what else you do, after you have understood. And also some people, I notice that some people tend to complete everything and do past papers. My suggestion would be, if that works, that's fine. My suggestion would be to do the relevant questions, because we have classified MCQ papers and all, right? To do the relevant questions after you've completed the relevant topic. So then you can revise that topic and clarify whatever questions you have. Because no matter how well you know the theory, there's no point. It won't translate into marks until you know how to apply that in a question paper. That is why past papers are the most important thing.
Welcome to NCHS.
Studying has never felt this good.
It's not just studying.
This is what a lab should be. Whatever I want, whenever I need.
I don't miss a single class of it.
I'm flying to Australia next week.
Commence degree pathways at NCHS and continue in Australia, Malaysia or USA. Unlock your future.
Thank you so much, Shaafee, for that very descriptive advice. I personally did not know that past papers played such a huge role. Thank you so much for changing my mind, and probably multiple of our other listeners as well. So with the note of that very insightful advice, we'll be moving on to the next segment of today's session. Our third segment is about how you felt beyond the numbers. So now, after following this great advice, would you like to tell us about how you felt during the moment of when you found out that you ranked 6th in the entire country for the biology stream? What was your reaction like?
I can remember that moment very vividly, almost with clinical accuracy. I think it was the 31st May, and around 3:30 they said that the results were released, and then we had to go to that website and do those capture thing, which was very irritating, and I was just randomly doing it, and then suddenly I think it was at 4:03 when the results suddenly came, unexpectedly, suddenly there. So I saw a 1 and a 6. So I had placed first in the district and 6th in the island. So it was a state of minor shock, I would say. I didn't really feel anything at that moment. I was surprised, of course. And then I immediately told my mother, and then I called all my teachers. So I was quite happy. I did expect a bit more, I wouldn't lie. So, but I was happy with it. Surprised and happy, but it was overwhelming, I would say. More than happy, it was overwhelming. It was, finally it was over. So we were all expecting for it for a long time. Since our exams finished in January, we were expecting it. And then ultimately it ended. So it was a state of relief, and also relief was also good.
That's great to hear, Shaafee. We're all really, really glad that you managed to get such a high position within our country. We're so proud to have you as an individual in Royal College as well, because you managed to bring a slim glory to yourself as an individual and to our school as well. So overall, we're really happy that you managed to find such self-satisfaction within being placed as the top 6th within our country. So now, Shaafee, after such a big achievement, what's next for you? Do you plan to continue your studies within biology? Any other paths you've chosen? What's your future goal?
I do hope to enter the medical faculty. I hope it will start soon. I think the Colombo Medical Faculty. But as I already told you, my biggest passion is physics. So I'm teaching physics now. So I would like to also do something. I would like to do something academically also in terms of physics. For sure, I would like to pursue physics also, but I am hoping to get into the faculty.
Into the faculty? That seems very interesting and very nice. And I heard you were teaching physics as well. So how has that been so far?
That's been a great experience. I think I've always loved physics, and it is fun to teach. And it's been a very rewarding experience, I think, because especially during these days, between the A-level, after the A-level exams until entering university, if not for this, we will be doing nothing, right? So it's occupied my time and made me, it's been a rewarding experience, I hope.
Alright, now that we heard that from you, Shaafee, every journey has a support system. So who were the people who helped you out the most, and how did they contribute to your own success?
Indeed, if I have to list all the people, I don't think the time would be enough, but I'm immensely grateful for everyone. Let's start with my family, especially my mother. As I already told you, it was my mother who drove me from grade 1 to this point. I am a very stubborn individual. If not for my mother, I would not be here at all. And then also everyone else, my father, my grandparents, all of them supported me. My sister helped me a lot. I can remember, as I told you, I finished the bio syllabus quite late. So the last 7, 8, 9, 10 units, I used to study, and she was the one who used to ask questions from the resource book. So she used to, I think she had term tests herself during that time, but she gave that time to me, and she was an immense help. And then I already mentioned our teachers, all my teachers from the O-level teachers laid the background, and then all my school teachers, Ushani Miss, Dulani Miss, Pamoda Miss, Hirosha Miss, Ranjan Sir, Ranga Sir, all of them contributed extremely for this, and also my class teachers as well.
Alright, that's great to hear, Shaafee. So now that we're done with that segment, we'll be moving on to our next segment about advice for future achievers. So Shaafee, in your opinion, for all of the students listening right now, especially for the people who are wanting to write A-level biology and who are wanting to write A-levels as well, what would be your top 3 tips for those aiming to achieve top ranks in their exams?
The first thing would be to understand the concepts well. So when it comes to biology, physics as well as chemistry, understand the theory perfectly, right? Don't take any sort of roundabouts about that. Just memorizing the things or doing things shortly is not going to help. You have to understand the theory thoroughly and properly, which is of pivotal importance. The second thing, as I've already mentioned and elaborated in detail, past papers. Do past papers clearly, review them clearly, practice them a number of times repeatedly. The third thing would be to never neglect a subject. I think I did neglect biology quite some much compared to the other two. I did prioritize physics over them, but my advice would be, you can learn from my mistakes as well. My advice would be to keep all three subjects at a high standard. You can never hope to, because if you do two subjects well and one subject not so well, that will affect you, and that's such a unfortunate incident. So what would be best is to keep all three subjects at a high standard, and then if you like a particular subject more, you can take it to an even higher level. So those would be my advice. Understand, do past papers, and do all three properly.
Welcome to NCHS.
Studying has never felt this good.
It's not just studying.
This is what a lab should be. Whatever I want, whenever I need.
I don't miss a single class of it.
I'm flying to Australia next week.
Commence degree pathways at NCHS and continue in Australia, Malaysia or USA. Unlock your future.
Thank you so much for all of that solid advice, Shaafee Aya. And with that, I would like to say that we have received and come to the end of our amazing session today. So thank you so much, Shaafee Aya, for taking your time off your busy schedule, obviously, to coming here and teaching us about the main ways that we can face our exams better. I'm 100% sure that everyone that's listening, including myself, has learned something very new, especially that part about past papers. I did not know they played such a pivotal role in education. So thank you so much, Shaafee Aya, for your inspirational story, and I'm very sure that it's going to help a lot of students that are listening here today.
Thank you very, very much for having me here. I'm sure I had a great time here, and it was very rewarding to speak to you about all this. I would be very happy if some of this helped someone in any way. So,
I'm very sure it has, Shaafee Aya. So that is a wrap for this episode of QuantumCast'24. Thank you, Aya, for joining with us today and taking off your time. Thank you for everyone that's listening today who has decided to take time off their schedule to learn something new and to learn something for their future as well. And that calls a wrap for another episode of QuantumCast'24. Remember, success isn't only about just the final result, as Shaafee Aya has said so far. It's about the dedication and all of the motivation that you receive along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, keep pushing forward and always make sure to keep learning as we move on within the journey of life. Thank you so much, Shaafee Aya. Thank you to our viewers. Hope you have a nice day so far. Thank you.